Welcome to Put It All on Red. This is Roberta the Tool Lady. I have a wonderful show for you. I have a young lady who is going to be joining me. Of course, I'm going to be interviewing her. I had spoke to her earlier, but okay, I'm going to get into that. I'm going ahead of myself, aren't I? But welcome. I hope everybody is having had a wonderful weekend as we celebrated Easter. I hope you connected with family and friends. I did. So just a welcome back tonight. Well, I'm going to go ahead and introduce my guest. Her name is Michelle Steiner, and I'm going to let her talk a little bit about herself before we go on into a conversation. You can get a feel of Michelle.
Hello. Yes, my name is Michelle Steiner. Yeah, I live in. Thank you so much. I live in Pennsylvania with my husband Ron and our two cats, Jack and Sparrow. I am a parent educator. I work in a school with students who have disabilities and some who don't. And I am also a writer, a speaker, and a photographer. And I have a blog called Michelle's Mission where I write about my life with having a learning disability. And as I said, I do indeed have one as well.
Okay. All right. So Michelle had spoke to me, and we just spoke very, very briefly. But she had said some things that hit very close to home. So first, before we go farther, though, tonight's subject is I can, because
Mhm.
yeah, I can be. Because Michelle was like, people usually tell you what you can't be, right? What you they put all these barriers. You can't do this, you can't do that, you can't do that. I had spoke with someone about this reel they had a long time ago, and it was about different things like social economics and stuff like that, and your nationalities, your uh being a woman, if you're a woman or
Mhm.
a man. And oftentimes we do get those barriers put on us, and then if we got
Mhm.
disabilities, we really get them put on us and what they expect.
Yes.
So before we go farther, though, Michelle, let's go ahead and do an emotion check. Where are you at tonight, according to your emotions? How are you feeling?
I would say that I'm happy. Yeah, it's been a good day. I had a nice break from
Okay.
work. And so it was, yeah.
Okay.
So,
Well, I am. Well, that's awesome to be happy. I don't know if I'm reaching that high right now, Michelle, because I do have some, but
right.
that's wonderful to be happy. I'm happy for you to be happy. For me, I am anticipating. So I
Mhm.
have a couple family members that I'm really concerned about. So I'm
Mhm.
anticipating their healing, and I'm just prayerful, being prayerful right
Right.
now. So I'm anticipating some change in their health. That's really what my kind of my emotions are at right now. And so I'm just anticipating. I'm anticipating what's going to happen here tonight, what we're going to talk about. I'm anticipating that. And
Mhm.
I'm just anticipating it. So many things that I want to hear about and know about. So, saying that, um, let me see. What is our question tonight? Let me find it, because I had a question that I've already presented to you to kind of give you time to think about it, so you won't be. Um, yeah, so I won't take a side swipe you, because that's kind of uncomfortable. I've had that happen to me as a guest, so I won't do you like that. So you're like, what about that? Like that? It has nothing to do with it. Um, well, so what was the best thing that happened to you so far this week?
Well, I think one of the best things that has happened was just getting that chance to spend time with family and with friends because I was off for a week for Easter break. So I had that chance to really have that opportunity to just be able to relax and for my husband and I to spend time together. I think that was one of the things I really enjoyed doing. And I had the chance to get a few projects done, and just having that time to be able to rest and to go forward was nice.
Okay, okay. Um, yeah, that sounds even more awesome. Well, I also had some time off. I
Mhm.
didn't have a whole week though, Michelle. Now, I
Yeah.
didn't have the whole. But I did have. Tomorrow will be my first day going back. I kind of not felt well on Easter. I kind of felt kind of icky. So I've been off a couple of days, but I will be going back tomorrow. But I did get to spend time with the children and with family and nieces, and so it was pretty. That felt good. It's nothing like
Yeah.
sharing time with family, and then I had a friend even come to Dallas and visit me after. So I've had a good Easter break. It was very nice. We tried some new restaurants and stuff like that. So we did pretty good. I did pretty good. Um, so yes, and thanks and yeah, and thanks to everyone who is tuning in tonight. We really appreciate you as well. I always appreciate people who keep up with us. Keep up with me actually.
Mhm.
I really appreciate it. So we named it I Can Be because when we first talked, we talked about people with disabilities because that's Michelle's niche, and if you didn't know, that's also my niche. So my niche is like mental health and also disabilities, and because it kind of goes hand in hand, because you do have individuals who have behavioral, but you also have individuals who also have some disabilities, like some learning disabilities and some develop. We call them developmental disabilities, right?
Mhm.
So that's kind of my two niches. So when she told me that, I was like, okay, that's sort of where my heart is as well. But then when we were talking, she kind of said something that overall, again, to go back to that one reel that I was referring to, and I wish I would have found it before we came on tonight, because it was actually one where he goes over. He basically has all these like high school children lined up, and that's how they start. It's like a race, but then he says certain things to them like, "Are you religious? Do you go to church? Did you come from a two-parent home? Are you of an ethnicity group? Are you a first time migrant to America?" So he asked all these questions, and each one you could say yes to. It puts you could either go forward or you go backwards. But
Right.
it showed how a lot of people have different disabilities and disadvantages already built in to themselves as
Yes,
their
definitely.
makeup.
That has
So
really
what Michelle,
right.
go ahead,
Yeah,
Michelle.
that I can definitely relate to that with having a disability, with having that, because from the time I was around 5 or 6 years old, I was put into that. They found out I had a learning disability, and that has changed the trajectory of my life from that, and for my family too. I was my parents' first child, and you can't tell that I have a disability. So I went to preschool, and my teacher could see that there were some things that were going on, but they didn't even have the education at that point to know, okay, this is a learning disability. So my preschool teacher recommended that I stay an extra year, and my parents thought, okay, no, that's fine. She'll catch up. And when I went to kindergarten in public school, I didn't catch up. It was really hard for me, and my teacher noticed that. And that was so key, because before this happened, a few years, they had legislation that was passed that said students with disabilities do need to have services, but it still was not very widely accepted in a lot of schools. And my teacher noticed that. And sometimes that's key with women too, because with little girls, because sometimes we think, well, if they're really shy, we don't always expect them to be as academic. So if they struggle in the classroom, then that can be something that can really be something we can just kind of sweep under the rug a little more, or just disregard that to gender. But I was also an only child for 13 years. So I was around a lot of adults. So everybody could see that I was really frustrated that I couldn't learn. They could see I was really upset that I couldn't tie my shoes. I couldn't write my name. I had a great deal of difficulty with anything math related. So that was in my favor to have that. And sure enough, after I was tested for a learning disability, they found out that, they told my parents, they called them in for a meeting and said, your daughter is never going to understand math. And that was hard for my dad because he's really good at math. And he couldn't understand. He said, well, 1 + 1 is always going to be 2. Why will she never get that? But what we had to end up doing was we had to go to a different school. I had to repeat kindergarten the following year, and I began to receive specialty instruction. And the one thing that I had going for me throughout all my years is I had 2 parents that were able to be married, and they're going to celebrate 51 years coming up this May. And I had parents that never gave up on me. They were the ones that, shout out to mom and dad. They made sure that I went to school. They made sure, even when it was hard, we spent a lot of long, tearful homework sessions, and they were telling me, you got to go to school, even though if I wasn't going to do good on a test, or if I was having problems with peers, because I really stuck out from a young age. I went to a very small conservative school district where everybody knew each other. And if you were one of them, life was a lot easier. And I wasn't one of them. And it was hard. I was bullied in both learning support, because a lot of my peers that I was in learning support with, they struggle more with reading, and I struggle with math. And some of them also came from some trauma backgrounds and had some really bad situations that were going on at home and didn't have a stable home life. So that was really hard. And then when I went in regular ed, everybody knew that I struggled. I couldn't hide that. Everyone knew I went to learning support to have tests read to me. And I was really lucky too, because my parents found out that I was great with reading and writing. My dad found a story that I wrote about a dinosaur when I was in 2nd or 3rd grade. And that just went into my own little world. I was like, oh, I am good at something, because I thought I wasn't good at anything. I thought life was always going to be hard. I was so discouraged. And reading and writing became my world as a kid. And academically, school got a lot easier for me. By the time I was in high school, I was in all regular ed classes except for math and learning support. But it got a lot harder for me socially. Everybody seemed to have their own little group, and I just didn't fit in anywhere. And it was really difficult. Luckily, I found an art group that was just right outside of my high school, and I found other kids that I didn't go to school with, and they had the same interest as I did. And I was able to shed that reputation that followed me since I was a kindergartner, being the outcast. Wow. And eventually, what that started to do was I found an adult writing group after I transitioned out of that one. And these people were a few years older than I was, and they got to see me grow as a writer and a person. 30 some years later, we're still in each other's lives. And they always encouraged me, you really should talk about having a learning disability. And I said, oh no, that's too personal. Wrote some really bad poetry and some other stuff I wouldn't want to share today. And another really big thing that came up as a teenager was, well, what am I going to do after high school? And that's when I started to get a lot of stigma that was placed on me. I had a learning support teacher who told me, well, I don't think you can handle college because of your disability. So why don't you go to the trade school? And nothing there interested me. If they would have had an early childhood program, I probably would have done that before I went to college. I had to get tested for a learning disability all over again. And I had a psychiatrist who told me, based on my scores, I would most likely not go past community college. I get to community college, and I had people that were telling me, peers and staff alike, that disability accommodations were cheating. Like we use our brains, not calculators. And thought I was getting an unfair advantage, and I didn't use the accommodations, and school was really hard for me. And luckily, I had a professor that said, why don't we at least get you extended test time? And I was able to pass her class. I did not do well, but I passed, and I was able to graduate with an associate's degree in early childhood education. Um, and after school, I was happy to be out on my own. I'm not able to drive because of my disability. We have a small town, but I was in a central location, and I was just really happy with, I was working some temp jobs. I liked having my independence, but I always wanted more for myself. And be careful what you wish for, because it just might come true. And I had to move back in with my parents for financial reasons. And this is the time I decided I'm going to go back to school. I researched programs that had the least amount of math and science possible and had disability accommodations. And there was still that voice. There were still people that thought that, okay, I was cheating, but I learned to silence that. And I advocated for myself. I would go up to professors and just explain my situation and what I would need. And I had a much better experience. I really was able, my grades improved, and I made Dean's List. And I was able to graduate with a bachelor's degree despite being told that's something that was not going to happen in my life.
Okay. Now let's go back to because the whole thing is being told. Uh, Now, are you driving now? I want to ask.
No, I'm not. Yeah.
You still don't drive. Okay, okay. Now, is it something with the peripheral? Is it something with your
Yes.
feet? Okay, okay.
Right. I mean, it has like a lot to do with my reaction time. And it's not in my eyes, it's in my brain, and just coordinating all of that together. It was kind of a funny story. I've always been really uncoordinated. So my mom and dad thought, well, when driving came, we knew that that was going to be a concern. So they had me wait a year to see if developmentally some things would change. And then they had me perform like little tasks before uh, they decided that wasn't going to be a possibility, or before getting that checked out. One of the things I grew up in the country, and we had a field,
Okay,
and they said,
okay.
why don't you go, okay, get on the riding lawnmower and go mow the field. Well, instead of making really nice, long, beautiful lines, I ended up making circles. So I always joke around that I know where crop circles come from after I went in the field. Um, Another thing that was a really big indicator that they had something else that wouldn't be safe was my mom had me drive up the driveway. Thank God she was in the car with me, or else I would have wrecked into the family garage. And with those things, we
Okay.
thought, we got to see what's going on professionally. And I had a driver's license evaluation, and I passed everything. I knew what to do if a car would break down. I understood the responsibilities of a vehicle, but and my vision was great until we got to the end, and they tested my visual perception, and they said, based upon your depth perception, we don't recommend that you get your license. And it was
Okay.
my, yeah, mom prayed that day in the chapel at the hospital, and for just for God's will. If this was meant to be, then okay, make it be possible that I could do that. If not, then make it that really clear. And it just felt like 100 pounds was just lifted off my shoulders whenever they said that.
Okay. Okay. Because so you must have wanted to drive, but your peripheral would not allow it. Okay.
Right.
Well,
I had
I wanted
yeah.
to ask this too,
Hmm.
because I also, like I said, I'm in special services as well. That's
Hmm.
my my daily
Hmm.
deal. But main time, it's interesting that you would correlate those things together, because now what we do, or what I do, I go through a phase of, okay,
Hmm.
can the child hear? Can the child see? And then we go
Hmm.
down the list to some of the other things that we may notice that are some of the disabilities, or even some of the not the visuals, but even some of the behaviors. It could, because a visual and your hearing can cause some pretty extreme behaviors. And so it may only actually be just that the child can't hear or see, and they're having these situations, these behaviors, or these learning disabilities from that. And so sometimes when we can get those things underhand, get that identified and diagnosed, and get some help if it's glasses or whatever, usually that child does pretty much almost 80% better after that. But we do start, I do start with
Mhm.
those things. So that's interesting that you would say that it did go hand in hand with you as well. And with education, it has progressed, things have changed,
Mhm.
because now we do have special services. Now we're
Right.
more empathetic towards special services. And also we're not capped off anymore. Now, do you have any children, Michelle?
No children, two fur babies. So yeah, I got two
Okay.
cats.
Okay, all right. Well, that's just like children. That's a lot of work.
Yes, they are.
That's a lot of work that requires structure and a routine. So that's
Mhm.
work to me. Well, now tell me this, because I understood you said it was weight off your shoulders, and I know that you incorporated your parents in your journey, and
Mhm.
so as a parent, what would you recommend some of our parents? Because I know we have parents that are listening, and some of them do want have some questions about their child's maybe behavior or even about some of the developmental, but they're afraid because a lot of parents, that's fearful to know that this child that is perfect to you may have some things that are different from other children. So some imperfect situations. And usually from my position, usually that's the hardest thing, is to say, you know what? Yeah, I know Johnny does, he doesn't behave, but I do notice sometimes he's getting pretty close to the teacher. Sometimes he might be whining a little bit more. Um, so what would you say? What would you recommend to the parents?
Well, one of the first things I would definitely recommend is that they have that open and honest communication with their child's teacher, their child's pediatrician, and like you said, making sure that checking out their ears or checking out and seeing if they need glasses, because that just might be a simple fix. They might need glasses, or they might just need hearing aids, or it could just be something that maybe they have their ears blocked. I know I had that too, and I was in speech for my first 5 years of school. But I think sometimes it can just be a real simple fix like that. And then other times it might be a disability. And a lot of times parents are really hesitant to put that label. But I think having that label really it is helpful. First of all, it does give them services in school, which the earlier they can start to get some of those services, the easier it becomes for them. I know with me, my having that, my parents did explain to me from the time I was a very small child that I had a learning disability and my brain just learns differently. And when I heard that, that was better information than what I was getting from my peers. A lot of my peers were telling me that I wasn't smart and I wasn't worthy. And hearing that from my mom and dad slowly, it was an extremely slow process that I didn't really fully even grasp until I was in my 20s or in probably my 30s. But just having that information, at least I knew that I had a disability. And sometimes parents don't want to say that, but disability isn't a dirty word. It's not a bad thing to have. And it certainly doesn't mean that your child can't be successful or should use it as an excuse for them not to achieve what their dreams are. It just might be different. And there might be some things that maybe the person isn't able to do, and that's okay. But to just really not be afraid to use that word disability.
Yes, yes, I agree with that, because it is the earlier you get
Hmm.
some help, then that means that child can get some type of adaptability adaptability to it, get some
Yes.
help with it. So that helps with, that child
Mhm.
progresses through the school and goes, from year to year. And it also sets up a different form of support for that child. Um, because each actually, we do have the because I don't know your age, but we do have the education where we do have the children are all engaged with each other. So that is a
Yes.
law, we have to do that. So we do that. And your child, special children are not singled out as
Right.
as as
Mhm.
so, but we just provide special services for them, and
Right.
it's helpful. It's very helpful. Um, Now you had said that oh you just told me that with the parents, you had some friends who would say some things to you that would make you feel really bad.
Yes.
And how did that play out as you got older?
Well, I think when I was really young, it was very difficult for me because I would have people that would say, "Well, I don't want you to, sit with me at the lunch table or play with me on the playground." But the older I got, though, I started to find my own tribe, and I think that was the real key thing because I realized the people that I went to school with weren't going to necessarily be the ones that were going to be my friends. But I did struggle a lot with acceptance. I can just remember even after I did find my friends, I really struggled with being accepted and just wondering, okay, are these people going to like me for who I am? And just trying to find those right people. That was really hard. And I was very insecure for a lot of years. And I almost had like imposter syndrome where I thought, oh, somebody else can handle that better, or somebody else is worthy of acceptance or love. And I think what really changed a lot of that is when I finally got my 4 year degree, my bachelor's degree. That really gave me that boost that I could do that. And I know it's different for everybody, but for me, that was that. And also just having success, getting things published, and that really boosted a lot of things in my life. That okay, people do like me, and I am able to be successful. And a lot of that stuff that people said about me whenever I was younger, whether it was a peer on the playground or a psychiatrist or a teacher, that necessarily wasn't true because I could do that. I could be who I wanted to be, and I didn't have to live up to what other people thought that should be in my
Mm,
life.
yes, yes, I agree. Because children are often cruel.
Hmm.
I can
Yes.
remember we had and she's my friend to this day, but she was from Laos. And I can remember her sitting in a room when we were children in grade school, and she was learning English. Because we were maybe
Hmm.
in fourth grade at the most, and she was learning English, and we would go in there as children and teach her how to curse. That's how that's how awful children can be. We would throw in our own words for her to learn, and she was struggling with English. But we would do. That's how because children are. We are. We got older. We would often say like, "You remember that?" And she's a beautiful part of our community. But we were not. I would say we were sweet to her. We always loved her, but we just wasn't that great at teaching her what was good. I'd say it that way. So we took our own liberty, being children, and that's how children are. Now, with your parents, I like that you say that they navigated this, and they gave you somewhat power over what was in your immediate
Hmm.
environment. It sounds like it sounds like they gave you a lot of resilience, even though that
Hmm.
a lot of the professionals may have said one thing, they said something else. And I think people need that. We all need that, And because even with being a woman, and a woman of color, even for me, sometimes
Mhm.
imposter syndrome is a real thing,
Right.
because like, well, maybe they don't want to hear it from me, right? But then the other thing is, why not me? Why it cannot
Yeah.
be? And certainly saying, you know what, you can and you can be. And that's why I thought that was a good subject for this, because even if you didn't have a disability, as a woman, we were often told already what we're going to do and our capability.
Exactly. Yep, exactly. We were told what we were going to do and have that pressure to live up to that. Yep,
Yeah.
agreed.
Yeah. So now, what were some of the pre what were some of the things that were pre-made or pre-said to you that you were going to do? I know that they said you weren't going to school because of your disability, but some of the things that led to being a woman and a disability, what would you think?
Right. Well, I know in my family, marriage was a big thing. So I knew that I swear my mom and my grandma, God love them, were planning my wedding the day I was born. And it took me a while to find the right person. And I
Hmm.
think there was always that uh, pressure. Okay, you're going to be married, or you have to find, you have to find somebody. And
Yes.
I had to a lot of times be my advocate on who I wanted to be with. And I didn't want to go for that pressure just to be with somebody. And my parents were also really lucky too. They met each other in high school, and I mean they went to different schools, but they met each other so very young. They started with
Mhm.
being married. So I think sometimes they thought that might be my situation, and it really didn't turn out to be that way for me. It took me a while to find the right person, and sometimes people thought that I was being really picky in my own family too, and it really
Mhm.
served me well. I mean, there was a lot of really broken relationships. I can just remember being really discouraged, and I finally gave that to God, and I said, God, do not send me somebody until it's the right person. And He was faithful, and I couldn't have planned it. And there was just so many things that were predicted about him and the relationship, and it just all came together, not on my timing, but on God. So I think that that was the big thing. Marriage was a big expectation that my family had, and also
Mhm.
just society too. That
Yeah.
was one. I think sometimes there was also just the kind of jobs I was going to have as a person with a disability. I can remember it was really frustrating. After college, I got involved with a disability agency that helped people with disabilities find employment. Well, a lot of the programming was good, but it was for people that had intellectual disabilities or developmental, which is wonderful. I think they need the extra support to get a job, but some of that wasn't geared to somebody that had a learning disability. I
Mhm.
can remember I was working temp jobs, and they would call me in for appointments, and I would have to take time off work to go in, and it was a waste of my time. They would have me circle jobs in the newspaper that I was interested in. And if I told them, oh, I have a job interview for this place, they would say, well, do you want us to come with you? And I'm like, no, probably the only thing I would have needed maybe would be a ride somewhere. I didn't
Yeah.
need somebody to hold my hand while I had a job interview.
Yeah.
Wasn't perfect at them, but and even there was people that knew me that thought I went up with that struggle that you should be just able to take any kind of job. Maybe you should go and take a job stocking shelves, and nobody thought that um, I knew people that did that had disabilities, and they were fired even though they had the education. They went to a specialty college for that, but the job market wanted somebody that didn't have a disability and could do it at a certain pace. And sometimes jobs aren't as patient with people that have disabilities. So that was frustrating. And I can also
Yeah.
remember when I was younger, we were out at a restaurant, and there was a person that had Down syndrome that was cleaning off tables, which is great. I mean, that's wonderful that that person had a job. But somebody that was with me said, well, isn't that nice that they give people like that jobs? And I can just
Yeah.
remember that imprinting in me as a young person, thinking, well, I have a disability. And I don't know if that's a job that I would like to have. And is this really my only options
Yeah.
that are out there?
Yeah, yeah. I could see that, and I like that you brought up the dating situation.
Hmm.
Because actually, to be honest, I used to be part of we had disability homes.
Hmm.
So I used to be a coordinator of those homes, which have individuals with disabilities,
Hmm.
and that's one of our main deals is to find ways recreation for our
Hmm.
clients. Like they can go out and socialize, they can go out and
Right.
date, and it was a big need because if not,
Yeah.
because we had several clients, in their 20s and late teens and early 20s,
Hmm.
and of course they want to do just what everybody else is doing. They want to go out and date too. So
Yeah.
finding places for them and that were safe and that would not be
Hmm.
too much, for them was always something that we would have to look into. And also providing those activities. And it's interesting that you say job club because I used to be a part of job club too. Um,
Right.
and so you do have different people, different. So it is identifying those disabilities, and sometimes not, and being mindful enough not to lump everybody
Exactly.
into the same bowl because
Hmm.
everybody's different. Everybody, all the disabilities. I can remember I had one lady that was from Sweden and she had severe arthritis. That was her only
Right.
disability, right? So,
Yep.
of course, she wouldn't fit in with this other one that's schizophrenic. Those are
Yep.
two different groups of people there. And so we would have to be mindful of where we're going to be sending our clients. So yeah, that those are really good ways that people do lump people in, and I think those are ways also, like you said, for women, because
Yep.
at a certain age, even if you're a woman, at a certain age, what is the question people always ask you? All right, when are you going to
Yeah.
get married?
Hmm.
Right? You're like,
Yep.
showed up by myself. Why would you ask me that? But that is one of the taboo topics, or one of the topics that we do ask women. So it would be complicated because then you have to find someone who also fits your who you are and where you are. So now, how did you and your husband meet?
I met him whenever I was volunteering at our art center, and he was going in to play guitar that evening. And he saw me walking down the street, and he said, "Who is that girl, and where is she going?" And it turns out we went to the same place. We also knew mutual friends, and that whole summer we got to know each other. And that was really nice that we got to be friends first before we went out. So we knew we had a relationship that was happening, and we had that friendship before that. And it turns out we were at the same, we were meant to be together. We were at the same place at the same time after we talked to each other, and it's just we were blind to each other at that point. And then I had a friend that predicted, I had a couple friends who predicted this. A couple years before I met my husband, I was at the art center, and another guy was asking me, "Oh, are you seeing anybody right now?" And I said, "Oh, no, not right now." And he goes, "Well, you never know. You might. I think you're going to meet a person at a place like this." And he talked about how he met his wife when they were traveling. That's where I met him at. I mean, and then that's where I met my husband. And then there was another dream that a friend of mine had. He called me on the phone and said, "I had a dream that you got married. I don't know who the guy is, but you're standing in a vintage dress in front of the courthouse." And I thought, okay, the vintage dress, definitely, because that's my style. I thought, who is this mystery man? And why would I be in front of the courthouse? And
Okay.
we had our reception at the art center, and the photographer had us take a little walk up to the park, and right across from the park is the courthouse. And I did not put it together until I got our
Wow.
pictures back that I'm standing there with my husband in a vintage wedding dress, and the courthouse is in the background.
Wow, Michelle, that's neat. Oh,
The
you
planning.
heard that, lady. Did you hear that, right? You hear this? That's why it's how I can be. Now she just told us about a lifelong disability, and but she told us that she also told us that she had some things manifested, and she didn't say those words, but someone had already spoke them to her, and told her, and she was open to it. So, just saying, and I'm speaking for myself too. We can't find a man if we're at home, so we might need to take that and run with it, and then maybe start thinking some of these things over ourselves. That's really neat. I love it. I really do. I love that. Now, does he have a disability as well, or?
Nope, he does not have a disability. But and he's very open though. I told him on our first date. Well, of course he picked me up. I mean that which is traditional. And I told him just on the first date I have a learning disability. I'm not able to drive, and he was the first one to ask me, "Well, how does it make you feel?" And nobody ever asked me that. And there was a lot of people I had that did reject me from that. I can remember my ex was breaking up with me, and he was saying, "Well, I think you could drive if you really wanted to, and I was tired of taking you places." And
Wow.
that has never, he just wasn't the right person for me. But I've been really blessed. My husband takes me to work in the morning or wherever else I need to go. I have a sweet coworker that takes me home at the end of the day. And that's never really been an issue for us. We were able to work things out, and we're still in a central location where if he decides that he has something he has to do, or there's something that's going on where he can't take me places, I'm able to go where I need to go pretty much.
Okay. Okay. Well, that's awesome. Well, I love a story that has love involved, of course.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that you found someone who fits into your world. As you
Mm-hmm.
said, the other guy said, "Well, look, I'm really tired of this," but you found
Mm-hmm.
someone who actually fit into your world. And it sounds like he's pretty accepted. He's accepted everything about you 100%. So that's awesome. And he asked you, how did you feel about it? Does he ever tell you, like it is that you are, let me see, how's the word? How would you say it? You're perfect without
Right.
that. Has he ever told you that?
He does. Yes, he does tell me that I'm amazing and things that, yeah, and it doesn't bother him. He that's something that he was accepting over, and that he loves me and sees me for who I am. And another thing, I mean, even if he doesn't have an actual disability, there are still things that he struggles with too, or he needs that. And we both work together and help each other out as we do that. And that's something I've seen that has happened. We'll be married for 10 years in June. And it just, that's the thing when you are married, you both work together as that team and you help each other out.
Yes, yes. Now, Michelle, you mentioned your job. What kind of job do you have?
I work in a school. I'm a para educator, so I'm a teacher's aide. And this year I work with seventh graders, and I help the students with their work. I'm able to help them with anything except for math. All the students know that, or they will soon find out. And the staff knows that, or they will soon find out as well. And I just find it so rewarding to be able to be in that job though. Because for a lot of my students, it's like hearing a recording of myself in seventh grade. I hear a lot of, "I hate my disability. I wish I didn't have an individual education plan," and just a lot of that. And I get that chance to go in there as somebody who really knows what that's like. So I can tell them, well, having a disability isn't a bad thing. And having that IEP is not a horrible thing, too. And I show them how to advocate. I think that's the big thing for them, because I, so many of my students, they're going they're going to leave me, and I hope they graduate and they're able to achieve every single dream that they want in their life. But for so many of them, their disability is going to be there. And it's important that they learn what their disability is and ways that they can help themselves, and how to advocate, and to ask for help.
Yes.
And a lot of times I'll have students, they're afraid. I can remember I had one little girl that she didn't want to go ask for help. And I said, well, I'll go with you, and I try to really step back, and I give them that space to be able to speak up for themselves, because that's something they're going to need to know how to do. And before you know it, they're not afraid anymore. That girl wasn't afraid, and she was asking for help.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know what I can see that would be great is that you've been there before, so that you
Mm-hmm.
do understand kind of the process and some of the I would say some of the shame that comes with
Mm-hmm.
that, because basically you know they're going to need an IEP, but they're saying that I don't like it because it makes me feel like
Mm-hmm.
I'm labeled, and it makes
Yep.
me feel like I am less than the other children who don't have it.
Mm-hmm.
So I can see how you could be really beneficial to those children as they go through that process. And you're right, learning how to advocate for yourself, and learning, actually, and learning about yourself. Like you were saying about
Right.
your husband, even if he doesn't have a disability, he has some things that are a little bit maybe negative that he could be
Mhm.
aware of, like for me, I get grumpy when I'm sleepy, right? So I gotta, you know, you get really ugly when you're sleepy, or you get really
Yes.
fussy when you get hungry, or when
Mhm.
things go a little bit wrong, you kind of look a little crazy at people that you probably want to be aware of, Roberta, right? So we all got those things that we have to learn those things about
Yes.
ourselves, and that's a lot of our self development. And I like that. So we're not defined by really the beginning,
Right. We're not.
not defined by that we have a follow we have a outcome, and sometimes the outcome is bigger than what we even thought, right? Now tell us about a little bit about your books before we leave out.
Sure. I definitely, I have had some stories published in some anthologies. I had three stories published in one called Rediscovering Your Story. And what that is about is I went to a workshop and I got a chance to talk about some of the greatest life lessons that I've learned. And I also had some silly ones where we talked about our hair, and another one where we talked about our favorite place. And that's available on Amazon. And I also was published in a book called The Baggage We Carry. And that was about where I talked about just some of the emotional baggage that has come with having a learning disability. And I've also, I will have a book coming out called, I will have another story published coming out called um, about having a learning disability, and through the book will be called Through Our Lens, and that'll come out this fall. And also with my blog, I put in a lot of nature analogies. I will write about the process of uh, my disability is like the process of a flower that's blooming or a butterfly that's transforming. And I'll do a lot of nature analogies with that. And I also combine a lot of photography because I'm not able to drive. I get the chance to literally stop and smell the roses, and I get to take pictures of flowers, and I'll put a lot of them on my blog and on my other website that I'm starting called Yinsmart, where it's like a local Etsy, and I put a lot of my flower prints on there as well.
Okay, okay. Now, and because you're buffing a little bit, could you tell me about the book that's being printed? What book is that? Is that an anthology, or is that
Yes,
one book?
it's an anthology. It's called Through Our Lens, and it's about people that have disabilities, and they're putting a collection of their stories of just their life and their experience, and it's a number of different ways. What the editor has said, some of us have talked about maybe our childhood. Some of us have talked about how we might have had through our adulthood, and some of us do a mix of them. My story is kind of this mix of my life, and it's about growing in a garden of like that, the adversity, and just how, because I love to garden, I love flowers, and just tending to that and doing that, once again, doing a lot of those analogies with having a learning disability.
Okay, okay. And then your blog, what is it called again?
It's called Michelle's Mission,
Michelle.
and yeah,
Okay, okay. All right. And how often do you post on the blog? Is it once a week or
usually it's about once a month now. I'm trying to get better at doing that
okay?
at least twice a
Okay,
month, but yeah, I know.
no judgment, no judgment here, Michelle. I don't judgment
I
here.
know.
So, join Michelle on her journey. I think it's really one that's worth the join, especially if you have some things that you've overcame, and some things that you're still overcoming. Also, the aspect of having a child, because I think as a parent, you sometimes you get really flustered with, okay, this is what I see as my child, and you
Mhm.
don't really see, okay, but my child can, they can blossom and they can be what they are going, what they're created to
Mhm.
be, although they have some disabilities or some things that are some hang-ups or some, some what is it called,
Mhm.
some hiccups here and there, right?
Yes.
they can still they can still flourish and go on with life, and be, and I know none of us are normal, so we can throw
Yes.
that out the window. Nobody's normal. But we could do a baseline. We can have a baseline of what we can say as far as having a
Mhm.
life, having a family, having a husband, a significant other, going through some of the rituals that you go through, such as the wedding and those things that you say, well, you know what, I want my child to go through these things, but I don't know because my child has a disability, so I'm really, scared
Mhm.
that my child won't have this opportunity. And I also couldn't help but think about there's so many actors now that we have, that have
Right.
Down syndrome, uh,
Mhm.
that are really, really good actresses. I can't think of their names, but I know one is on American Horror, and she's awesome. Then of
Mhm.
course they had, the other people, the what is it? And I don't know what is they're short people, but they had they have
Right.
movies. They're in movies too, so I will try to be
Little people.
appropriate
Yeah.
and
Mhm.
politically
Wisdom.
correct.
Yeah,
But there's a vast amount of people with
there is.
disabilities that are in the limelight
Right.
and that are really successful, very successful at this time. So you can be whatever you want to be, and whatever, I think God has. I won't even say I think. I know God has designed you to be. Not to let some of the things that you go through or has happened or that you were born to
Mm,
stop you from being.
agreed.
Well, would you like to leave anything else for our audience before we log off tonight?
I would just love to encourage people that success doesn't always come in the package that you expect, but sometimes it comes in something even better. And to focus on the things that you are good at, and just not to give up. And if you focus on the things that you excel at and that you're good at, that'll leave you feeling a lot happier and empowered than rather than the things that you cannot do.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I agree. I love that. I love how you said that. That's so true. Things that you
Mhm.
can do. Um, and I appreciate you, Miss Michelle, for joining me tonight and telling your story. Look out for her. Look at her. Go to her blog. Go to her web page that she has set up. She's also on Facebook with her name, Michelle Steiner. So,
Mhm.
just check her out. I also have an anthology that I have. And if you didn't get it, you need to get it. I have another book coming out here really soon. If you don't, I'm going to let you
Mhm.
know when it's coming out. And then I also want to talk about making $1 million babies. So just a little bit of something to think about as we leave out. If you're interested in anything that I've said, anything Miss Michelle has said, inbox us, catch us on any social media platforms. I'm Roberta the Tool Lady, Roberta Williams. This is Michelle Steiner, and we just really appreciate you sharing this time as we just had this conversation. Michelle, you rock. We had a good time tonight. I think because I asked her, I said it's going to be an hour, Michelle, and she said, "Oh yeah, I think I can do it," and
Yes.
you absolutely did. So thank you all. Good night. Love you. Peace. There's a sparkle